Hello Tarot Rebels, welcome to today's video. My name is Michaela from Tarot Rebel and I'm super happy to see you joining me. As it's with the TarotTube community, you see a tag circulating at some point and you get inspired to tell your story, which I'm now feeling to do. And today I saw the tag of called the 7 decks for deadly sins circulating. First I saw it on Peekaborose's channel, but the origin is on Sylvain's Deadly Sins channel. I will leave both of the links in the description box down below for easy use and easy access. After watching the videos, I started thinking, how can I map this to my tarot experience, because I do have some strong feelings towards some of my decks, which are now laid out in front of you. And without any further ado, I'll invite you onto this roller coaster, or I don't know, very tame depending on who you're asking, ride, and let's see how I feel about certain decks and how do I connect with them. So starting off with the first prompt, we have Pride, a deck you purchased for flexing. So I consider this my deck for flexing because this is my oldest deck. It's the Egyptian tarot cards by the Church of Light. As you can see, the box doesn't look that good. I do have a book I can use to read with, so that's not a problem. The cards are also in really good shape. The only reason I purchased this deck is because it's a very old deck. It's from 1964, and because it's from 1964, which is close to my mother's birth year, I decided to purchase it. I don't read with it, I don't use it, I sometimes brag about it because it's so old and it's not in the best of states. I will have to admit it, but I think it looks better than what I've seen in its generation, if you like. So a deck I use for myself because I'm so greedy and I don't like to share it with somebody else, sorry. It's the Marilyn Tarot. I think I've mentioned it time and time again. I don't read with this deck for anyone else but myself, because this is what people in this community say. It's a soul deck. I do have the second edition, and it doesn't include the very controversial images that the first edition had, but as I said before, I still want to purchase that one at some point in time. This deck is the depth of knowledge in this deck is amazing. You have a book at your disposal, you have nudity, you have things that might gross you out, things that might scare you, things that are somewhat hard to digest. But I think the general consensus is that this is the intention behind the deck. I do like the aggressiveness of it. This has to be one of my favorite Queen of Pentacles or Queen of Discs in this deck. I think it packs a punch, and I don't think the imagery is very well received when you read for someone else. Yes, I've sometimes read with it for other people. It didn't go as planned. This is one of my favorite 9 of Discs, and the wealth of knowledge in the book regarding this card specifically, I think it's amazing. So I would recommend it, just even if you're not interested in tarot. If you get this deck, you get access to some knowledge that doesn't necessarily feel accessible in other contexts. So I'll just pack my decks back as I go because I don't want to waste anyone's time. Next in line we have a deck you're angry with, and this is for the Sin of Wrath. The Harmony Tarot, I think is the deck that best encompasses that feeling. First of all, Harmony Nice, the deck creator. I got one card stuck at the bottom of the deck for some reason, and it's the Ghost. I don't know what card that corresponds to. This is a whole new system that the deck creator decided to go with, which I'm not necessarily upset about. It's just the lack of creativity when it comes to the minors. Like, you have the 7 of Spring, I think, with the 6 of Spring. There are very few elements to distinguish between them. They don't necessarily map out to tarot itself, and I kind of felt like I was cheated because it was called a tarot, but in the guidebook you will have to learn it and study it. In the guidebook, some of the cards do map against the tarot, but others don't. So again, it's very difficult to understand. Yes, the court cards feel a bit more well thought and well planned, but the minors are in general pippish and with little to no elements that you can distinguish between the two of them. This is, I think, the 4 of Summer, which would correspond to the 4 of Wands if you look at the ribbon. But if you see other elements of in that suit, you'll understand what I mean. Like, even if we look at these 3 cards, it's hard for me as a reader to distinguish between them. Yes, if you struggle a bit, you will see the elements that differ between them, but it's not very obvious, and it kind of makes it hard for you to read this intuitively, which I think it was the initial plan. So this deck always makes me angry, and I never use it because why would I use something I don't know how to use? Now, a deck that I wanted because other people have it. First of all, I think the Pagan Otherworlds is the one that springs to mind. I don't use it. I don't read with it. I just like the cardstock. I like the imagery. It's a very lush deck. The cardstock is amazing. The artwork is amazing. It's such a nice buttery linen finish. I'm hoping you can see it on camera. It's just one deck that I lusted after in a way, without necessarily wanting to use it. I do like it. I think I will work with it at some point. I don't have the guidebook, but as you can see, the system follows RWS system very closely, so you can read with it regardless. I do like the cardstock. I do like the imagery. I do like the pippish cards, which I think some people have struggled with in the past, but for me it's not a problem. It's just sometimes I look at it and I'm thinking, when will I read with this deck? Because frankly, I don't need to, you know. Now, another deck I wanted because I saw other people use it, and I was kind of jealous I didn't have it, is the LGoliath. This is a deck that's been on my list, and obviously now I cannot open the box. Excuse me while I do this off camera. I saw this deck multiple times in people's videos and on in forums and on Facebook and in other places, and obviously I really wanted it. This is how it looks like inside. This is the Magnificent guidebook, which again I have a problem with. I knew that this will bother me before I purchased it, but because of the wealth of knowledge, I am happy to give this a pass. I don't like books that are in this format. I would have preferred if the book was binded on this side rather than on this side, because it kind of gives you the impression that you can open it like this, but you can't. But that's just my pet peeve. The deck itself sits neatly in this box. It's velvety, it's split in two parts, and the cards are quite big, as you can see, and they're black and white. Specifically, this deck was made for shadow work, if that's your thing. This is why I purchased it. Also because I like the artwork. I think it's a very very well thought element of the deck. Some of the names at the bottom of the cards I don't necessarily agree with, but that's just my pet peeve. I can work with it. It doesn't really matter. I do like most of the choices, but I will have to say the best thing about this deck have to be the extra cards, which I'm struggling to get out of the box at the moment. Give me 1 second. As I said, this deck includes a couple of extra cards, I think 10 of them, and they are the best, or even more. They are the best thing about the deck. So we have the Caution, the Ojibwe Catcher or the Shadow Dream Catcher, the Expansion, the Sacred Heart, the Karmic Release, the Nature, the Sacred Fire, the Karmic Soul, Tribe, the Hidden Inner Strength, Masks, the Shadow Self, and the Shaman, the Starseed, the Sage, and you have 2 yes/no cards. So these are probably what I think are the best additions in terms of extra cards for any of the decks I've ever used. I think they are so in tune with the theme of the deck, and they work so well with the rest of the cards, and you can use them as significators or as additional cards with additional meanings because they are in the guidebook. So basically it's up to you, and I do like when a deck creator allows me to think how I want to use my deck. Okay, moving on. For the lust part, a deck you like for aesthetic reasons. I actually have 2, and it's gonna be something very controversial, and I have 2 decks, the Fantastical Tarot and Stella's Tarot. I've spoken about the Fantastical Tarot at length before. It's a very tiny deck, mass market. As you can see, it's very creepy in a way. The figures are very gaunt, the line drawing is very thick, the colors are very bold. I think the distinguishing element, apart from the bronzy border, which I really enjoy because it reflects the light in a very cute way, is the fact that the characters don't seem to have eyes. Oh wow, now I've realized what's happening in this 10 of Cups. I do apologize for that. So, I quite like this deck. I think it's one of my favorites, despite it being an old deck. I think it was released when? Does it say on the box? sometime in 2000 and something, I forgot, maybe it says on in this, okay, 1999 copyright. So sometime after 1999 this deck was created, was published. Anyway, it's one of my favorite decks. I like the cardstock for a mass market deck. It's very buttery, very satiny buttery in a way. It's hard to explain, but I do like it. It's very easy to shuffle. It doesn't cost an arm and a hand. I think that's the saying. So if you decide to purchase it, you won't regret it, because I actually think it's one of the best additions in my collection. And because of that, I decided to purchase all decks created by Natalie Hertz, who's the creator of the Fantastical Tarot, because I quite like her artwork and I think it's worth having it. So I have the Fairy Tarot and the Vampire Tarot, which I don't use that much, as opposed to the Fantastical Tarot, which is one of my favorites. The other deck in this section is Stella's Tarot. This is technically made in Belgium by AGM AG Mueller, but you can only find this deck in Japan, which is interesting to say the least. It has a really cute guidebook. You can go through it. Mine is the second edition of the deck. It's almost 10 years old now. It's very hard to come by unless you're willing to pay extortionate amounts for it to arrive from Japan. But this deck, I think I was debating between this one and the Dreaming Way Tarot, but that one is again a mass market deck, and in no way I want to like induce FOMO in other people. But this deck, I was so on the fence with it, but I am so happy I have it. I still have it in order because I play with it and then I put it back in order because I want to film a video about it. I think the artwork is whimsical, is childish but profound. I like the lack of proportion. People in this deck seem very like they're part of a caricature of some sorts, so it does convey that whimsical spirit throughout, and I do enjoy looking at the deck. I think it's really cute. It has some certain pippish elements, meaning that not much action is happening in the cards, but people are present in the cards, like in this Nine of Wands. And I do enjoy working with it. I think it has a certain quality that I cannot quite put my finger on at this moment. But ever since I heard of this deck, I was struggling to decide if I should buy it because it's so expensive and because it's out of print, and I didn't want to contribute to any of the consumerist currents that are happening in the community. But something good happened, so I decided I should reward myself with buying this deck, and I'm happy I did. I do like this Nine of Swords. I think it's a very interesting imagery that they've chosen to put on the card. So this is Stella's Tarot, which is part of my decklist crew. Obviously, do I recommend it? I think anyone can read with this. It has certain elements and symbols that can make it easy to connect with the LGoliath system, but it also has its own personality, if that makes sense. Next we have Gluttony, a deck you didn't really need but purchased anyway. And I was tempted to say all of my decks, because at the end of the day I don't need my decks to be able to read. But I decided on the Oak, Ash and Thorn, This is a deck that took the internet by storm last year, and everyone wanted it, everyone bought it. I have the first edition. I'm happy I got it. I think I felt a bit of fear of missing out when I got the deck. I don't use it. I think I appreciate the quality of the deck, the design, the creative direction in which they went, if you like. And although it's an animal deck, and I do love animal decks, I don't use it nearly as much as I would. The only thing I'm happy to say about this deck is I was happy to purchase it because it was made in the UK and I live here, so obviously I want to support the local economy, if that makes sense. And it's made out of, I think, recycled paper. I think it says on the box. An eco-friendly Rider-Waite Smith inspired art deck containing 78 tarot cards plus 2 double-sided companion reference sheets, allowing each card to be read intuitively with just the right amount of guidance to support you. Printed by Generation Press, carbon neutral, solar power, vegetable-based inks, responsible print. So, I was happy to support this initiative. I try my best not to be very wasteful with my decks. This is why I don't necessarily buy mass market unless they are secondhand. I don't want to contribute to any pollution, any climate change, unless I really have to. So I do prefer to buy, if it's a mass market deck, I do prefer to buy them a secondhand, if possible. And last we have Sloth, a deck you use when you feel lazy, and I will have to turn to my trusted Aquarium Tarot. This is the 1970 edition, so again another old deck. I think every time I read with this deck I find that the readings are probably as honest as the Marielle, but they're a bit gentler. I can read with this deck for anyone. I'm not constricted by anything, to be honest. So again, that's a good thing. And I do like the art. I think I like the thick colors, the thick lines with the very bold colors. Again, clearly that's my thing. And I don't know, it's just it just feels like that very honest friend that tells you when you're making mistakes without necessarily hurting your feelings in the process. So I do like the close-ups of the images, but also the diffused colors in the background, like these blues in the background, but then you have very strong pastel colors at the forefront. So it's a very interesting color palette with this deck. And obviously the deck stood the test of time. The cardstock is amazing. They're not too thick, not too thin. You can riffle, shuffle, you can do whatever you want with them. I think they're amazing. And honestly, I'm thinking maybe I should like retire this one and get a second deck reprint of this one just to use it as my everyday deck. Although I'm sure I wouldn't use it. I've done the same thing with a couple of my decks. The Enchanted Tarot, I think, with Jonasa Jao's Tarot, with the Sasurai Bito. And I keep going to my first deck, even though I bought replacements specifically to preserve the initial purchase. I keep going to the first deck, so I think the same will happen with my Aquarium Tarot if I decide to do it. Anyway, these are my decks of that I like to think I've sinned when it comes to them. They are very interesting choices. I did not expect to see some of them on the list, to be honest. I hope you enjoyed my ramble. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below. I would love to hear what decks you consider sinful in your book. What do you think of my 7 deadly sins? If you agree with them, if you have a different opinion, if you think that actually my choices are very tame, any type of comment would be greatly appreciated and gladly accepted and answered. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and looking forward to see you in a new one. And in the meantime, have a good one.